Oyez, oyez, oyez. This work session, regular meeting of the Township Council is called to order. Madam Master Clerk.
In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of this work session regular meeting of the Franklin Township Council was made by the posting on the front doors of the municipal building, posted on the township's website, and electronically transmitted to the officially designated newspapers, indicating that this work session regular meeting would take place via WebEx at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 11th, 2021.
Thank you. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilwoman Crystal Pruitt, you could do the invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us take the next few moments of silence to each seek in our own way whatever sources of inspiration will grant us the strength and power in our thoughts and decisions to be for the benefit of all people at all times. Amen.
Amen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Embarrasson?
Here.
Councilman Chase?
Here.
Councilwoman Francois?
Here.
Mayor Kramer?
Here.
Councilman Oni Jaka? Councilwoman Pruitt?
Here.
Councilwoman Udine?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella?
Here.
Councilman Wright?
Okay, we are on to proclamations. The first proclamations is the Mayor's Monarch Butterfly Pledge. I don't think I'm going to read the whole thing, but this is a pledge made by mayors around the country to facilitate the thriving of monarch butterflies. They are an endangered species. I don't know if they're technically on the endangered species list, but they're certainly under pressure. The proclamation is, whereas the monarch butterfly is the iconic North American butterfly species whose multi-generational migration and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans. And whereas Franklin Township recognizes that human health ultimately depends on well-functioning ecosystems and that the biodiversity regions can better support food production, healthy soil and air quality, and can foster healthy connections between humans and wildlife. Whereas Franklin Township is committed to implementing the following actions that will help save existing populations of monarch butterflies and create new habitat for the monarch and other pollinators. And it lists various things that we can do, such as mowing programs, maybe some ordinance changes, such as allowing people to allow portions of their lawns to go back towards nature and support the monarch butterfly. Now, therefore, I, Philip Kramer, Mayor of the Township of Franklin, on behalf of the Township Council, do hereby proclaim, well, this was done in the past, April 27th, 2021, as Mayor's Monarch Butterfly Pledge Day. Franklin Township, and encourage all residents to participate in community activities that support and celebrate monarch conservation. Okay, and Mr. Vasanella, Deputy Mayor Vasanella, you had a proclamation.
Yes, Mayor. And it's a wonderful, fun proclamation. We're acknowledging a long-term resident of Franklin that recently celebrated his 100th birthday. So I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Robert Morgenberger was born on May 4th, 1921 in Buffalo, New York, and whereas Robert will be honored by friends and relatives on the occasion of his 100th birthday on May 4th, 2021. And whereas in 1944, Robert enlisted in the Merchant Marines and was a radio operator of multiple Liberty and Victory ships. And whereas he met and married the love of his life, Ursula, and are blessed with 2 daughters, Erica and Barbara, and 3 grandchildren, Eric, Christina, and Caitlin. And whereas in 1969, Robert and Ursula bought land and built a home in the Eastern Farms section of Somerset, where he still resides to this day. And whereas during Robert's long and productive lifetime, he earned the respect and affection of people from all walks of life and all ages because of his knowledge, experience, wisdom, and community spirit. And whereas with the love and encouragement of his family and friends, Robert has been a powerful influence for good in our community, of which he has resided here in Franklin for over 50 years. Therefore, I, James Fasanella, Deputy Mayor, and on behalf of Philip Kramer, Mayor of the Township of Franklin in County of Somerset, the state of New Jersey, and on behalf of the entire Township Council and its residents, do hereby deem it an honor and pleasure to extend this proclamation to Robert Morgenberger on the occasion of his 100th birthday with sincere congratulations and best wishes for many, many more happy, productive years. That's it. Yes, yes, 100 years, and over 50 of them spent in Franklin.
Very nice.
Congratulations, Mr. Morgenberger, and anybody who's turned 100, no matter how long you've lived in Franklin. We're so happy you're here and wish you more years. And if anybody is interested, they know somebody, a family member that may be celebrating a 100th birthday in the future, you could reach out to any council representative, mayor, or myself, and we can honor that person accordingly. So again, congratulations, Mr. Morgenberger, and the whole Morgenberger family. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We're now on to public discussion. Do we have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. We are open to the public. Anyone wishing to speak will be limited to 3 minutes. No yielding of time. Please state your name and address. Mr. McQueen.
Yes, good evening. Mr. Mayor, anybody from the public wishing to speak, we ask that you use the chat function, raise hand feature, or if you're dialed in by phone, please hit *3. Again, if you would like to speak, please use the chat function, raise hand feature, or *3 on the telephone. Mr. Mayor, I do not see anybody indicating they would like to speak at this time.
I'm looking. I don't see
Oh,
it either.
wait,
Oh,
There's a hand.
Yep.
we have a winner.
All right, I will unmute your caller. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ed Marco. I live at Rupert Drive in Somerset.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Reason for my phone call, I've been following this a little bit about the properties on South Middlebush, being here for 50 years and watched this township grow. My family, 5 brothers and family just grew up in this area. And I understand that South Middlebush is an agricultural zone, but there's some kind of house of worship that our town is allowing to build there. And I don't understand, if it's agriculture, why are we allowing this?
So this is an item that's before the zoning board, and by law, or by practice of law, council is not permitted, or it's not appropriate for council to comment on that. We could be seen as influencing the proceedings, and that could get us into a lawsuit either way.
What are the options of people that live in the town to pursue this, to hopefully not let it happen? What's our options here?
You know, so as to not take any chance of prejudicing this, I'm going to let the township attorney answer what options are people have when an item's before the zoning board.
Thank you,
So-
Mayor. You have an opportunity to appear before the zoning board at the hearing of this matter. I'm not familiar with it, but you can certainly appear and express your opinion on it and thoughts on it there.
When
You
does the
and
zoning board
any
meet?
neighbors.
Mr.
Barry,
Dominic,
can
When's
we
the
help
next
you with
time?
that?
I noticed that Mr. Dominic is on. Mr. Dominic, do you happen to know when the next time this, one of the churches will be before the zoning board?
Sir, if you
Yeah.
want to give me a phone call tomorrow, 973-907-3447, I can tell you what the next meeting date is because it's been carried. There are other items and I can answer any other question you have regarding the applications.
Okay, so it's 973-907-3447.
Yes, you can call me at any time and we can discuss it.
And your name again?
Vince Dominic.
Vince? Okay. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I'll do that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
caller. If you could hit *3 to lower your hand, that would be helpful.
Sure.
All right. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak, use the chat function, raise hand feature, or if you're dialed in by phone, *3.
I see 12 people on, and I see nothing up.
I just got a message that popped up in my chat directly. Mayor,
What
or
does
Bob,
it, what does
um,
it say?
it's a
Wait.
Jonathan White. He says he doesn't have a raise hand function.
Mr. White, you're unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jonathan White. I am of 7 Gary Court in Somerset, New Jersey.
Okay, go ahead.
In the last year, America has had to take a very difficult look in the proverbial mirror. Many Americans now recognize truths that have been shouted for decades by Black and Brown Americans. It took a global pandemic and the utterly painful viewing of the life snatched from the lungs of George Floyd after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and numerous others before a significant majority of Americans were forced to reckon with the inequities Black and Brown people have suffered under. Whether it was the health and economic disparities that the pandemic laid bare as Black and Brown Americans died at devastatingly higher numbers than white Americans and at a younger age due to disparate healthcare across the country, or the fact that Black and Brown businesses were shuttered at alarmingly high rates, many of them shut out from the original PPP loan offers because of the lack of formal relationships with banking institutions, or whether it was the obviousness of the inequitable treatment Black and Brown people face at the hands of police, Americans have been put on notice that the time is now to do the work and hold themselves accountable to create a more equitable society. Any entity that hasn't done this self-reckoning has either been hiding under a rock or hasn't appropriately evaluated its own values. It is with this in mind that I ask now, again, Mr. Mayor, Township Manager Vornlacher, Deputy Mayor Vassanelli, Mr. Dominic, and members of the Township Council, has Franklin Township asked itself if it has done or is willing to do the hard work of creating an equitable environment at every opportunity. I ask that the Township Manager, Mr. Dominic, and or the Township Council at the leadership of Mayor Phil Kramer, once again, to perform an equity audit and determine if the township is doing everything possible to support its Black and Brown residents, whether it be in the hiring and promotion of qualified township employees or the solicitation and contracting of Black and Brown owned businesses that typically see less than 1% of government monies allocated to services performed for the municipality. I ask that this be a priority for the council for the remaining fiscal year, with a report issued with action steps to address any inequities found within the next year. Jonathan White, resident.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak? Looking up and down. See no one else with a hand raised. I see nothing else on the chat box. I have no indication that anyone else wishes to speak.
On that note, Mayor, I will then motion to close the public portion of the.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor of closing public portion, say aye.
Aye.
That's two people. All in favor of closing the public portion, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Strong work, council. All right, we are now on to council comments. And Councilman Wright, you just disappeared. Oh, there you are in your finery. Council comments, go ahead.
Okay. Last night, Tuesday night, and I think I was there with the mayor and a couple other council members. Dr. Karazi brought everyone together to explain Ramadan and the importance of race, color, nationality. They don't matter. And in my opinion, they shouldn't matter, because if you look under the skin, we all bleed red, and underneath the skin, we're all the same color. So last night was an interesting evening. I've eaten with them. I've done a lot of things with them. So it's a good evening all the way around. Now, for another piece, I in contact with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a sorority here in the state. They have 3 chapters. This one would be the Central Jersey Alumni Chapter, and they have a voter educational set up for tomorrow. Let me give you the information so that we can move forward on it. I take that back and say, educate the community on the importance of voting in every election and explore all voting options. They will join the conversation with and educating the roles and responsibilities of the clerk, Board of Education's administrator, and the Board of Elections commissioner. They will have the Union County clerk, the Somerset County Board of Education administrator, the Middlesex County Board of Elections commissioner, and I think 2 other ones that I can't get a hold of right now. But I think is beneficial for everyone, because if you're not sure on voting tactics, voting information, how not to be intimidated, how to exercise your rights to vote, and the importance of voting in the primary and the general election. If you don't, then you lose the chance to exercise your voice. So I would encourage, even if you know things, I would encourage you to visit that voter town hall meeting. And if you go to the Delta Sigma Theta website that I would give you in a couple minutes, Mr. Mayor, if you would come back, I will have that website information for you so that you could sign up. So everyone get your pens together. At the end, I will come back and give you that email address. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. You could also put it up in the chat, Councilman Wright.
Oh, okay. That way, I'll do that now.
Okay. Councilwoman Crystal Pruitt.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
I haven't had too many committees since our last meeting. The one that I did have was Advisory Board of Health. And we obviously talked a lot about the COVID pandemic and the vaccine rollout. There's no real new information for me to provide. that has already been provided by, our local and our news outlets. I would also say that I believe that this is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I guess just let that be known, and perhaps maybe the next council meeting we can do a proclamation for it, even though it would be the end of the month to celebrate. But beyond that, I do not have too much to report. We will be hearing from Police Director Sproul about the annual report I mentioned at last council meeting. And I just hope everyone is well and being safe. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman Pruitt. Councilman Charles Onijaka. You're muted. Councilman, we can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Just barely.
Oh, okay. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, I would like to move a motion to rename East Millstone Park after Bob Metla. We all know Bob. Bob Metla was a fine gentleman, kind and intelligent person. And all his life, he worked very hard for Franklin and Somerset. He was genuinely concerned about Franklin too, a good historian. So I would like to move this motion, and I hope all of us will support me for us to rename the park under his name.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. I thank you, Councilman Onijaka, for, can't believe it's been a year now, a little longer that he's passed. Anyway, I will second that motion. And the park, I believe he's talking about, is right there near your neighborhood, Mayor, which is literally blocks from where Mr. Metler lived, correct?
Yes, I mean, he would often walk to the post office, go right next to that park. It'd probably take him less than 5 minutes to do it.
Anyway, yes, I support that. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. The usual protocol is for it to go before the administration committee, but maybe we can bypass that if we get the consent of council, because, I mean, basically, because it's Mr. Metler. I have no other, if you don't understand what that means, then you don't know who Mr. Metler was. Is there any other discussion on this?
I would,
Go ahead, Mr. Chase.
well, I would just say that this is really a no-brainer, and it's good that we have a park right in East Millstone to name for him. I mean, Bob Metler, most of all, was known as a township historian. And I always remember that we were discussing soil contamination around the Franklin Inn, and they'd found a little bit in one space between it and the canal. And I asked Bob, was there ever anything there? He said, oh yes, there was so-and-so store. It burned down about 1914. That's a good example of what Bob Metler knew.
Yeah, he certainly was a giant among men in East Millstone. I certainly am for this. This is an important thing. I suppose we could do it by acclamation, but Madam Clerk, I would like a roll call on this.
Okay. Councilman Embarrasson?
Yes.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Onijaka?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
I don't believe I had a chance to vote. Did you hear me say yes?
Yes, I did. Or I thought I did.
I thought I was mute. I just wanted to jump in and say that I served with Mr. Mettler, Bob Mettler, on the redevelopment agency. And he added so much insight and so much depth and so much purpose and passion to that redevelopment agency. When we got stuck, he always brought us on track. He was so knowledgeable, and I think this is a wonderful thing that we're doing for him. Yes, I vote yes.
So that's great. It's unanimous. Mr. Manager, you have your marching orders. I'm going to task our clerk. This may take quite some time, but if you can try to figure out all the titles Mr. Mettler has had, as all the committees he's served on, et cetera, because we may want to do a plaque about that. And I trust Mr. Manager.
You'll never fit everything on one plaque.
Maybe we'll have to paint the basketball court with it.
There you go.
And Mr. Manager, I think it would be very nice if you included his widow in the planning for the ceremony.
I will. So obviously right now that park is about to see a facelift due to the fact that it had been used as a staging area for the canal dredging, and also a new playground is to be installed once we have a capital ordinance introduced tonight, actually. And that ordinance gets adopted. It calls for a new playground to be installed at what will now be Robert Mettler Park, right? And so I will work with our recreation department. I know actually as an attendee, I believe right now is our recreation director, Bo Burtis, and I'll have a discussion with him tomorrow that we can certainly plan for a dedication ceremony once all of the improvements are taken care of over the next 2 months.
Great.
Yeah, maybe we can have a celebration in September where anybody from the community, if the rules and situation allow, with pandemic hopefully being mostly gone by then, but we can perhaps have a public celebration so anybody who knew Bob can come at the dedication.
Great. Okay, anything else, Councilman Onijaka?
That's what I have for the night, sir.
Well, that was quite something.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Kimberly Francois.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I just want to bring to everyone's attention tonight on the consent agenda, there is a change order for the amount of $116,468.77 for the youth center. These were changes that were unforeseen during construction. And some of the changes that are part of the change orders are, there was a revision to the gas line to the building. There were 2 residential water lines that had to be relocated. There was concrete in the soil that had to be disposed of and removed and disposed of. There was some utility work for a transformer relocation. And there was also, we ordered some retaining wall material, and it turned out that it would take months for us to receive that material. So we had to, I was actually touring the building on April 16th, the youth center, with the architect, with Vince Dominic, the construction manager, and the construction crew. And the construction manager showed me the retaining wall and said, Kimberly, what you originally picked out, it'll take forever for us to get it, and it will delay the construction of the building. So we picked a different material in order to be able to complete the construction, which should be completed by June 30th. So the retrofit of the center is underway, and we're ordering furniture and materials for the various rooms. And certainly I provided my selections for the fit out as part of the subcommittee. And we are hopeful and expecting that the center will be ready in September. So $116,000 based on a $10 million project is about a 1% change order. And technically, I think that's a good These were changes, not aesthetic changes, but changes that were unforeseen that are needed for us to complete the construction. So I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And while we're on that, Mr. Vornlacher, I noticed that the change orders were numbered 1, 9, they weren't numbers in order. Perhaps you could explain why they're not just sequential numbers.
Okay, sure. They're not sequential numbers because when a contractor, our general contractor submits a request for change order, not always are they approved and not always do they go through. So that would be indicative of Mr. Dominack, who happens to be here for another reason tonight. But Mr. Dominack, as the construction project manager, reviews all of those requests for change orders with the architect and the general contractor, and oftentimes we don't approve the request for the change order because we don't feel it's warranted. And most change orders, deal with, as the councilwoman said, deal with unforeseen site issues that we've talked about. For whatever reason, unbeknownst to us, there were 2 residential water services to adjoining properties that ran through the youth center property. They had to be relocated, so we had to pay for that extra work to be done. Apparently sometime in the long ago past, it was used as somewhat of a landfill, and when they began to excavate, they found concrete under the ground, and that had to be disposed of. Things like that are unforeseen. However, I would stress that we're still under budget with these change orders. So, the anticipated cost was over $12 million. So we're still under budget at this particular point.
Great. Councilman Mbarasan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last couple of weeks have been quite busy and active. Lots of things have happened in the world and in Franklin. After nearly 15 months, I attended a couple of in-person events, as well as, of course, Zoom meetings. On the 28th, there was a HRC meeting. One of the commissioners, Commissioner Venke, held a panel on current unrest in the United States, discussing about everything from anti-hate issues against Asians, Blacks, etc., to the crisis, pandemic crisis in the country and elsewhere in the world. That was a good session. Then the budget was presented, the Sewerage Authority budget was presented on May 4th. I think considering all the things going on, it was a good budget. And I think revenue and expenses should kind of match with the past progression. So we are happy about that. And then 6th of May, we had National Day of Prayer. Interfaith Council President Dr. Alex Karazi organized that. Many people of different faiths came and prayed, as well as some of the council and the mayor, of course. We all prayed for everybody's safety and good health to continue and pray for the peace and unity in the world. And that was a good event. Alex, thank you very much if you're listening. And similarly, on that weekend, last weekend actually, there was a day of a prayer, Peace Day was celebrated at the Buddhist Vihara on Route 27. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful statue of Buddha, sits right off of Route 27, slightly inside. Of course, we maintain social distance. There were a lot of children that were recognized for their achievement in volunteerism, as well as some adults. It was conducted by Somerset County Diversity Coalition as well as Branchburg Rotary Club. So it was a very nice event. I had the opportunity to welcome the guests, and it was a very good event. And it was outdoor. It was fantastic. It was nice to breathe some fresh air with the mask. Of course, last night we had participated in the first ever Ramadan lighting. I won't steal Councilwoman Udin's thunder on that, but it was fantastic. Again, another outdoor event at the gazebo, people calling for unity. I think the Hindu religion talks about tolerance and universal acceptance of all religions, of people of all color, so on and so forth. So I think celebrating Ramadan in Franklin yesterday was a wonderful, wonderful event. Lastly, but not least, I participated in a panel I had helped organize. It was done by Franklin Reporter. This is on the current COVID crisis in India. So I had brought in a couple of people from India, a practicing doctor from one of the leading hospitals in India, and a trustee of a foundation that is involved in social service in India, as well as U.S. Commissioner Venki again participated. He runs a corresponding nonprofit in the U.S. So it went on for a couple of hours, and it was very eye-opening to hear from India on the ground the pathetic situation that people have to go through. I just heard the news. More people are dying for lack of oxygen than the pandemic itself. Very quickly, I organized a fundraiser with the help of course, Alex Karazi, he has his nonprofit, as well as Commissioner Venki's nonprofit. What we are doing is we have raised enough money, about $85,000 in the last 4 or 5 days. That is good enough to buy about 50 oxygen concentrators that will help save real lives in India. We know that a patient, COVID patient needing oxygen doesn't need to be admitted in a hospital because the hospital beds are in full capacity. There's no more room there. But a lot of them do not need hospitalization if they had access to oxygen. So not just the 50 units is a drop in the bucket for a country of 400,000 cases a day. But there are many, many organizations that are helping India through buying and sending these oxygen concentrators. But we feel good about giving 50. It's going to save at least 50 lives every 6 to 8 days until this pandemic is over. So if you have the mind, please go ahead and contribute. It doesn't matter which organization. There are many, many organizations that are fundraising and helping in this situation, in this crisis. So I ask every one of you and the listeners, please open your heart and help our fellow citizen of the world. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to again thank Alex Karazi, who has done an outstanding job on a couple of initiatives that you have heard today. Thanks to him, in fact, for his foundation for coming up with about $15,000 towards oxygen concentrators. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Shipa Udin.
Thank you, Mayor. So I believe I have a short list of items, but I've been working very closely with Mr. Bornlocker and Carl, I think in the last couple of weeks on a couple things around the street schedule that we're working on, trying to finalize that. Also working with them on the Middle Bush Park updates, just maintenance, park maintenance that's going on. So you're going to start seeing a lot of work that they're doing, great work that they're doing on making our parks safe for our families that are going in, friends that are attending some of our recreation activities. So just a lot of discussion on our maintenance. I was also on the land use meeting, and again, we also discussed of making sure that our parks are ready. I think that's going to be one of the big things that I've been working on in the last couple of weeks. Apart from that, I am working on a small section of Somerset Hills with Mr. Verlocker as well, working with residents on a couple of their concerns that were issued. The other thing that I did attend, I think a couple of our council peers have already mentioned, is that last night we had a very nice observance of Ramadan, where we celebrated just lighting the lights right in the patio, the gazebo. And if you don't know what Ramadan is, it's where Muslims fast 30 days of strictly fasting from sunset to sundown. And it's, marking end actually this Thursday. So it's a big celebration of Eid. And that's what we celebrated yesterday, just creating awareness around Ramadan. And it was very nice to see a lot of familiar faces. And after a very long time, I think, as Councilman Ram mentioned, that, I think it's one of the first events to many more. So it's very nice to see our residents go out and also our peers. That's pretty much, I think, what I had, Mayor, on my list. A lot of work with Public Works. So that's pretty much wrapped up.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Chase. You're muted, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have too much to report. We didn't have a land use committee meeting at the end of April, but the Public Works Committee has been meeting, as Councilwoman Boudin alluded to, deciding on what streets will be repaved during the coming year. We have a almost final list, but we have to figure out how much money has been saved out of last year's street repaving budget to see if we can do all of the streets that we've put down that we intend to get paved. We've been trying to, in some cases, pave a shorter part of a street where a short part of a street is in very poor condition, although the majority of it is in satisfactory condition. We can make the dollars go a little farther by paving just the parts that are in the worst shape. But there are other streets that are need repaving from beginning to end, Grouser Lane, for instance. We've also, the mayor, I'm sure, drives that very often. We also started consideration and pretty much want to go ahead with the rest of a list from a study a couple of years ago about sidewalks, focusing on sidewalks that will make it safer for children to walk to schools, particularly the middle school on Hamilton Street. And of course, also Hillcrest School is quite adjacent. So we think we're going to be able to do the rest of the sidewalk extensions that were on that list. I want to say one thing about the issue before the zoning board, the temples on South Middlebush Road. act of Congress some years ago restricted local governments from discriminating against location of houses of worship in any way. So it's really in our ordinances that houses of worship will be located, can be located even in the agricultural zone. And I think a lot of the debate is really about exactly how it should be located on the property there. So I just want to warn people that the zoning board very likely will not be able to turn this down. Whatever the public and even members of the zoning board may feel about it. So I'm not expressing any opinion on it myself. I'm just trying to inform the public a little more about how land use works. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Vasanella.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to highlight a couple points Ted mentioned, we are very close to finalizing the list. I think I mentioned last month we had to back off a little bit from some roads we normally would have done because we are pretty well financially, but obviously dealing with a COVID coming off a devastating year. And we want to be a little, let's just say, conservative and mindful of what we're spending this year. But doing some strategical approaches, like Ted mentioned, where we don't do a whole road. Plus we did looking forward to next year, plus we did a pretty comprehensive inspection, not us personally, although council members on the committee, including myself, we drive the roads and go look. The actual inspection and report of the conditions are done by various employees at Public Works, which are knowledgeable of roads. And anyway, so we did a lot of inspecting this year and got a lot of updated information, and hopefully we'll have a pretty good analysis of what we feel is needed for 2022, which actually will be here in 7 months or 8 months. But we'll present the financial oversight and see if we can catch up everything next year. The sidewalks, Councilman Wright, I'm sure hopefully you're happy to hear that we're moving forward to try to do the balance of them. And like it was mentioned, the main goal is to provide a safer route for people, children walking to school. However, there are little bits and pieces all over the town, as far down as way down 27 going towards Kingston, and a couple little pieces in the western area of Franklin, just little pieces that for whatever reason were left out. So most of the work is concentrated in the area of the schools, but there are little improvements that will be done all over. And we have gotten excellent feedback once these sidewalks have been installed. So hopefully this money, by the way, was all budgeted in prior years. So that's one reason we were able to do it this year, because the money has already been appropriated. So I also just want to mention, Ram, if I understood everything you were saying, literally you and Alex Karazi are literally saving people's lives. And I don't even know how to put that into words. As far as the gratefulness that I know a lot of people, including myself, have for your efforts. I remember as much as it's often bad news when we talk about Alex, Dr. Karazi, that a good man to have around in bad times. I recall, oh God, a few years ago, that horrific shooting, I believe it was at the Temple in Pittsburgh, and Alex had within hours, I think, put together just a celebration of community coming together. That was a very emotional event. But anyway, Alex, great person to have around when things are gone awry. And thank you. And Ram, you too, for literally saving lives. Thank you, Mayor. That's all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I'd like to talk about the vaccine, first in general, about the vaccine. Everyone, please get it, not only to protect yourself, but to protect the community. We really do need to try to reach herd immunity with this. That would be such an incredible step forward. It would move us much more quickly to opening. I know some people are concerned about getting the vaccine. If you just look at the statistics, the odds of being hurt by the vaccine are virtually insignificant compared to the odds of being hurt by the virus. I'm not going to make believe that it's, entirely safe, nor would I make believe that driving a car is entirely safe. But the statistics on this are just overwhelming. And I know it may be scary. This thing was developed very quickly, but all I can say is no one in town about this, no one on this screen, certainly not myself, are smarter than Dr. Fauci. And what I always said is I would be the next person in line after him. There were a few million people between us, but we were close. For those people who are interested, May 14th, Raritan Valley Community College, from 10 to 2, they will have Moderna. On May 14th at Rutgers Plaza, at 940 Easton Ave, the old Kmart parking lot. From 10 to 1, there'll be J&J. On May 12th and May 14th, Somerset County Senior Wellness Center, which is at 876 East Main Street in Bridgewater, from 2 to 5:30. We'll be doing Pfizer first doses and Moderna second doses. Now, everyone knows Pfizer just opened up from 12 to 15-year-olds being allowed to have the vaccine. I'm getting people calling me to find out when the child can get a vaccine. Those are not offered at the walk-up clinics. By the way, all of those clinics were walk-up, drive-up, no appointment necessary. Just go there. They're not planning to serve kids with a 12 to 15-year-olds with a Pfizer at those. The first rollout for the children will be likely at the schools. There's a meeting next week to try to organize that. And hopefully by sometime next week, children in schools will start receiving it. I do not have exact control of that, but I want it to be to all the schools, not just our public schools, although everyone knows I'm a strong public school advocate, but all these kids are our kids in all these schools. And I will be talking to people, not promising what I can do, but I will be talking to people to see that rollout is across the board. More on COVID. People are asking me, when is the municipal building opening? It sounds like we're going to be opening on the 19th, and Mr. Warnlocker, I'm sure, will have more to say about that. And then there's questions about when will we have in-person meetings such as this meeting. I'm going to go out on a limb and take out my crystal ball. And crystal balls are notoriously inaccurate when it comes to this pandemic. What we know today, we realize is wrong tomorrow. And what we don't know and never heard of suddenly comes up next week. I think we're looking at September for those kinds of things. There's a lot of issues with that. A council meeting, the average council meeting, we could probably do safely tonight because we don't get that many people usually at a council meeting. But we have something controversial and people want to pack the meeting, not pack the meeting, but a lot of people want to come. So we're either going to wind up having to turn people away due to social distancing or say, uh-oh, we better go to virtual. Well, that, you know, to make controversial meetings virtual, but regular meetings, you know, that gets very sticky. And people would rightfully complain, or I shouldn't say rightfully complain, but I would understand their suspicion as to how we decide to do one or the other. I think we need to treat things the same for every kind of meeting that we can until we can change over. Again, that's my crystal ball. And my crystal ball may be wrong. The other thing that we're going to need to discuss is 4th of July. I think we're making plans for it, but probably, Mr. Manager, would you agree a council discussion item on it would be appropriate in the near future?
So what I would say is that if we're going to have a discussion item, it needs to be at the next council meeting and no later than that, because we need to provide notice to the fireworks vendor as to the date. And you know, the July 4th weekend is not that far away. It's already, what, May 11th today? So yeah, if we're going to have a council discussion item, it will need to be at the next meeting.
So, you know, that's a difficult decision, and but that's why we make 12 cents an hour. Okay, that's what I have. Mr. Manager, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I guess I'll first discuss what you had mentioned earlier. So the plan, as we have it right now, is to reopen all municipal buildings to the public on May 19th, which is next Wednesday. That coincides with the lifting of many of the restrictions that have been put in place previously through executive order of the governor. As far as other aspects that have been put on hold through the pandemic, residential property in-home inspections and work by township employees in occupied residential units. We're looking at beginning them again on June 1st. So what we're talking about here is with the fire prevention office, fire with smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, construction code with construction permits, plumbing permits, electrical permits, the water department with in-home water meter readings or an installation of new water meters. That type of work will begin on June 1st. And what I would remind every member of the public, we are very anxious to have you come back to our buildings. The employees have worked inside the buildings and tried to do their best that they can with email and drop boxes and you know, web-based apps and what have you, but it's always much easier to work with people in person. So we're anticipating this to be a good thing for our employees. But I would remind everyone that the standards that have been set through this pandemic will remain inside our buildings. That will mean that you will be required to wear a mask unless you have a medical condition that precludes you from wearing one. All of our employees have been and will continue to wear masks in all the public portions of the buildings. There are hand sanitizers and mask stations at all entrances to all of our public buildings. There are 6-foot distancing decals on the floors where you might be in a line to either get a permit or pay a fee or your taxes or your water bill. And you will still need to maintain social distancing and wear a mask. So we're looking forward to having everyone come back into the buildings, and that'll happen on Wednesday of next week. So some of the other things at our last council meeting, Councilman Onajaka asked me to look into the status of what is now Robert Mettler Park, East Millstone Park, and the work that had been done there by the company doing the dredging in the canal. What I've been advised, and I've already had an opportunity to speak with Councilman Onajaka, but for the public benefit, The basketball court, which was the staging area, will be resurfaced on May 26th, immediately following the resurfacing of the basketball court. In the days to follow, the seeding and grading of the areas around the basketball court where the grass is dead will be replaced, and then we'll be able to just isolate those areas in the park to allow the grass to grow, but open up the rest of the park after that work is done. So I would anticipate first week of June, we should be pretty much back in action as far as the park basketball court and area around it is concerned. And then I would, again, just let me bring it up on my screen so I can read it. One of the things that is a very popular thing in the township is our summer park camp program. Just a reminder that registration is available online for the camp program that will run from June 28th to August 6th. This is an in-person, not virtual as it was through the pandemic last year, but this will be an in-person camp following all the protocols directed by the State Department of Health to conduct summer camps. There's also swim lessons, and there's half-day and full-day youth camps. So if you're interested in having your child attend, I would encourage you to do it sooner rather than later, because oftentimes those camps fill up. Also, we have the public safety director here, but I'll touch on something with the police department. The Community Relations Bureau is sponsoring a clothing drive, and the distribution of the clothing that they collect, and it is in specifically summer clothing for children and juniors, will be on June 21st. But the Community Relations Bureau at 935 Hamilton Street is currently accepting donations Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. at their building. And it's in conjunction with the Community Baptist Church of Somerset. And I'd encourage anyone who has good quality wearable clothing for children and juniors, if you have it to donate, we would certainly appreciate it. And I think that's probably all I have right now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Wright, did you want to vocalize that URL?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, said again, what you asked me to do?
Did you want to?
I sent it out there on the,
right, I see
it's
it.
detas.org.
I think it's DELTA. It's cgadelta.org.
.org. Go to the website.
Very good. All right, we are
What
moving
did you
on.
just say? They add an S on there.
What you typed in was cgadelta.org.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Okay.
The fingers were working slow. I'm sorry.
Okay. Moving on. So the next item is council discussion items. I'm glad to see our public safety director survived council comments. That's not an easy task. And she will be providing us with the police department annual report.
Hey, the report is loading again. Here it is. Okay. We should be able to see it now. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we can. Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come here and present our police department's 2020 annual report. So this year, as you know, with everything going on in the township and the world, life was different, but the police department remained working the entire time. So this is just a timeline of what occurred. July 2019, Somerset County Prosecutor's Office took over. August 2019, the council approved the ordinance for public safety director and the search began. March 2020, there was the COVID shutdown, and somewhere in between March and April, I was offered employment with the Franklin Township Police Department, and I began working in April of 2020. So this is a breakdown of the divisions within the police department. The significant portion of our department is patrol, as I was reminded during many of my interviews with the township. We have the professional standards division and our investigations division. This is the command staff. As you know, we have 3 captains and we have 5 lieutenants, which comprise the command staff, and approximately half of that is dedicated to patrol, the supervision of patrol. These are our new and, former sergeants. Many of them are new. We had promotions last year. I will say we exhausted the list except for 3. And we did exhaust the lieutenant's list, just so you know that. Patrol. Right now, patrol has 6 squads. There's a lieutenant assigned to 2 squads. There's 2 sergeants per squad, and there's 7 officers per squad. Our goal this year, if we get to full staff, is to have 9 officers per squad. And that means that would put 9 officers and a sergeant on the road. So that's 10 vehicles on the road, and during overlaps, that would double. Our staffing is composed of, talked about the command staff, but we also have 73 officers and detectives. There's 13 detectives, 60 officers, 11 telecommunicators. That's our dispatchers. We have 12 class 3 officers, 1 class 2, 12 crossing guards, 2 animal control officers, 9 civilian personnel. Last year, we had 10 retirements. And the 9 police officer vacancies, that was at the end of 2020, but we are working on those. Right now, we have approximately 4 or 5 vacancies. During 2020, we were able to increase our female officers by 3%. So that was approximately 4 female officers that were hired. We increased the Black officers by 9%. That was approximately 10, 11 Black officers. I was asked after one of the meetings about whether or not we accounted for Hispanic officers. And just so you know, it's a combined total of 15% Hispanic that our officers self-identify, and that is 2 Black Hispanic, 13 white Hispanic. So there are approximately 16, 17 Hispanic officers in the department right now. Total calls for service as we go along, even throughout COVID, the activity in the police department still increased significantly during 2020. This is calls for everything that occurs within the police department. You'll see during 2020, we still had a significant amount of motor vehicle stops, summonses issued, motor vehicle crashes, and mall checks, security checks. And if you think about it, there were a lot of security checks, mall checks, parks checks, because businesses were closed. So a lot of businesses were closed, I should say. So we had to make sure that was, still secure. And also the parks were not supposed to be in operation. So we had a lot of park checks. So those numbers are high, but I'm going to show you in comparison to last year, 2019, I should say 2 years ago now, how significantly those numbers went up. Motor vehicle stops go down. I attribute that to there were less cars on the road for a significant portion of the year, even though, during COVID, it wasn't just COVID. It was just the fact that there were less people driving. If you recall, last year was no traffic, but most significant were the traffic enforcement details. Those are the complaints that we get for traffic enforcement in areas for speeding and other traffic complaints. So that did increase by 80%. Crime stats. Our 2019 and our 2020 crime stats, you will see basically stayed level, even despite COVID. The significant portion of the crime in Franklin is larceny, theft, and then followed by simple assault, which is usually domestic violence. So the larceny and theft, I just want you to keep in mind that it can be businesses reporting it, it can be citizens reporting it for online theft, bank fraud and things like that. So those numbers are pretty level. I'll show you 2020, where they pretty much stayed the same, and our overall crime stats were close to the same between 2019 and 2020. Something that did change was our closeout rates. Our closeout rate increased by 18%, and that is attributed to the fact that our officers, our detectives began collaborating more with each other because we have structured meetings where they meet, and also collaborating with other law enforcement agencies, not just in the immediate area, but throughout the state. So they have become very good at talking to other departments and talking to each other about their cases, because statistics show that most crime is committed by 10% of the same people. Our juvenile cases for 2020, this is a snapshot. Previously, we did not capture this information in this manner, but based upon talking with the juvenile supervisors, our numbers are down for 2020, and we can attribute that to the fact that school was out of session. So we would get some of our complaints, some of our cases through the schools. Professional Services Division, I just want to mention this because during 2020, we received a lot of firearms applications. I don't know if you remember seeing it on the news or hearing about how people, rush to apply for firearms. And we have one full-time and one part-time person that does these. But I will say, due to some staffing changes, we were able to significantly reduce the backlog with firearms applications. I used to get a lot of calls about the status of them, but it seems like we're catching up. We'll see where it goes if the numbers stay level for 2021. The Records Bureau consists of about 4 people, and they handle all of these requests, from subpoenas to discovery to OPA requests, deer carcass removal requests, handicap placards. They do it all, and they've done it all virtually because, like I said, we stayed open throughout the quarantine and through the COVID restrictions. IA. So our IA stats are going up live this week on the website. And this is something that most departments do. It's just to show transparency. This report gets published anyway through the state. Departments have become more transparent, and we just show it in real time now. It's usually quarterly. For 2020, our numbers were, most of it was administrative complaints. You can see, if you look, I don't know how yours look. Mine is looking a little blurry. I'm sorry. Most of the complaints were administrative. We had to send a couple to the prosecutor's office as per protocol, and then they come back and we review them and we do what we have to do. Training. During 2020, even though there was COVID, there was a lot of virtual training, and then there was some in-person training that the officers had to attend. Our bias crime reporting training, bike patrol was live. We now actually have a total of, we had one retired, but a total of 3 bike patrol officers that are assigned to the Community Relations Bureau. So they will be riding around this summer. We went through community noise enforcement certification because that had expired. We had officers recertified. So now there's 1 on every squad when we get noise complaints from citizens. The emotional intelligence training, cultural diversity, resiliency training, management coaching that all of our command staff and all of our supervisors will have completed by the end of this year. But last year we started with all of the new supervisors. Comp time and overtime. So in comparison to 2019 and 2020, our comp time is down 55% and our overtime is down 35%. For 2021, our goals for traffic and patrol, we want to reduce crashes, respond to speeding, aggressive, hazardous driving, impaired driving, also perform more car seat checks. Now that we're getting past, the COVID herd immunity seems to be getting better, we plan on filtering in more car seat checks because it's important. Public education, and also maintaining our force strength in patrol so that we can consistently have more cars on the road. In terms of technology, we're looking at the body cams, which are mandatory now, and tasers, and the e-ticket system. So finally, we're going to move into the 20th century with a lot of our new technology with the help of our IT unit. I know Bob McQueen might be cringing, but it's coming. In the Community Relations Bureau, we are still working on My Brother's Keeper. We are in the vetting process with them. I think we have to do their survey and some other compliance things so that we can get up and running. The Citizens Academy, the very first one, is already ongoing. This is week 2. We plan on having 2 more sessions throughout 2021. We look forward to our partnership with the new youth center. We've already had the walkthrough. So between our Franklin Fit program and our basketball program, we hope to be working much more closely with the youth center as it opens up. Also, we have begun distributing free resources to the community after partnering with Amazon. And administratively, more transparency, like I said, about posting our IA stats quarterly. Also, we're working on which policies and procedures we can post on the website so that citizens can see what our policies and procedures are on the ones that we can post that aren't security risk. We also want to reduce the firearms processing time, which we have done that already, but we want to get it down a little bit more so that it can go to the state and it can come back. Also, crisis intervention training. And just so you know, we did implement what's called CompStat, and that's a process where the supervisors and the command staff, we meet with each squad. We meet first, the first one we did was with all the supervisors, and I was very impressed by the work they were doing. And it was pretty much this presentation for 2020, but we're doing that quarterly so that we can keep an eye on what you just saw. We review it quarterly. And that is it. I thank you, everyone, for your support. This has been a very interesting year, like none other. But like I said, we still were at work and we did what we had to do to keep the township safe and to make sure that we were available at all times.
Do any council members have questions?
Mayor, I have a question.
Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Yes. 2 things. If I heard correctly, every shift will have, in other words, let me phrase this right. At all times, there'll be at least one person patrolling, one officer that has certification to deal with noise complaints. And by that, I'm just saying, look, I hope we have a fantastic summer where everybody can have all those parties that they couldn't have last summer. But of course, you get some noise complaints as with the activity. Am I to understand then that, is that correct? That there'll always be somebody that's available to respond that has the certification?
Correct. That is what we're working on. Right now, we have that, but we're going to get more. Right now, I believe there's 5 officers, so we might be missing one on a squad, but they can be called in to do it as well.
Okay, well, thank you. And that was one thing I know for years. It's not the most important thing with public safety, but it is a quality of life issue that we have a lot of great people, but sometimes when you live close together, so hopefully it'll be a fun summer and they'll be able to deal with that as they need. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and thank you, it was an excellent report. You know, we reviewed it quickly, the initial draft with Public Safety Committee, but I want to thank you again. It's very helpful information. I didn't see anything under the goals concerning, and you put a lot of separate things relevant to road safety. I didn't see anything about distracted driving specifically. And I personally still feel like, and please correct me, you know more about what goes on out there than I do, that's probably one of the most important issues relevant to traffic safety in town. We have a lot of drivers, a lot of young drivers, drivers of every age drive, you know, distracted and texting, etc. But is there a specific plan? Can we try to make it a priority? Is there, I know we get grants occasionally, but can we just here in Franklin make a special separate effort to deal with distracted driving?
So last month we had a distracted driving campaign, and several times Tuesday night talks, we reminded the community that we were out there and we were policing for that. And I believe Councilwoman Pruitt even reminded everyone, because I made it a point. I wanted everyone to know that we were out there and we're looking for distracted drivers, so no one could say they did not know that we were enforcing that. So that is an ongoing one. It's not really a goal, it's happening. So, right now.
Thank you very much.
Any other council members have a question for the director?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Pruitt.
Thank you. Hi, Director Sproul. I just wanted to kind of reiterate the IA information that you presented. Could you just kind of give just a brief kind of overview about what that process is, in case folks really aren't aware of what IA is outside of just, I guess, police dramas and procedurals, like what practically that is in a department and how they can avail themselves with that should they need it?
Okay, so internal affairs. So we actually have a unit now for internal affairs, and our internal affairs unit investigates any type of complaint against our officers, whether it's a demeanor complaint or something more serious. And they're there to also do the background checks. On that chart that I sent you, it also mentioned Brady Giglio's received. Those are requests from the county about any complaints on our officers. They want to review their IA files, internal affairs files, before a trial. So these monthly stats, they have different categories. And when we're posting it on the website, it talks about the use of force complaints, any type of complaints the officers have received. So it'll tell you the disposition of them, you know, whether it's been sustained, meaning confirmed that the incident happened, and whether or not the officer has been disciplined. So you will be able to see those. So prior to June 2020, there was none to report, but shortly thereafter, we did start getting some. So if you have a complaint, you can call the police department. You can ask for internal affairs, or you can speak to the officer or the supervisor over the phone, and you can make a complaint. Did that answer that?
It did. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other council people?
Mayor,
I
I just have
have a
something to
comment,
say.
Mr. Mayor.
So Councilman Ambasarian?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a comment to the police department. I wanted to recognize their community-based and I guess the relationship on many parts of the town, and specifically Director Sproul and her team has been working on a security issue at one of our communities. And I want to recognize the good work that you all do. Not in just that community, overall town, while the nation is undergoing severe pain with some really bad elements within the police force. Our police has maintained a very high standard of professionalism and sort of a relationship with the community and compassion. I wanted to commend all of the police in our town, and I want to thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Udine.
Mayor, I just wanted to come out and say thank you to Director Sproul and the team, because my kids attend the FIT program, and I want to say, you know, they have such a great time there. So definitely want to encourage other residents to take part of this great initiative that you guys started this year. It's an awesome program. So if you haven't been there, it's in that Hamilton Street section that they have, the building, which I think is going to go to the youth center eventually. So thank you.
Thank you. And yes, the CRB. So first of all, I just want to say I could not do the job that I do without the support of the command staff, the supervisors, and the men and women in the department. And I know when I first took this job, you know, the initial thought was, you know, it's a police director, she's a civilian, they're not going to accept her. And I know there probably was some, you know, reluctancy of what would happen, but I will say this, the situation that we're in now, they are embracing everything that's going on because they see the movement, they see the change, they see the positivity, and they see that, you know what, I am about making the department better, the community better, and I don't do anything to, you know, hurt them. It's all out of love, even discipline. You know, it's like you have to have discipline. It is what it is. And I think the officers are getting that, and they see that I praise them when they correct something that they were not doing before. And even with the reduction in comp time and overtime, it's not a punishment because the work still gets done. We're just being more mindful of what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Any other questions for the director?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a question. I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I would just like to say that I want to thank Director Sproul for the excellent, comprehensive, very thorough report that you presented today. You gave us a lot of information and you've done a lot of work in a short amount of times. It's amazing and phenomenal what you've done so far. The community resources that you're putting out there, the community outreach that you've been engaging the community in, how you have made changes with the staffing is phenomenal. And the community recognizes your leadership and the changes in the department, and it's well-deserved that you're getting this praise. And we're so happy to have you, and we look forward to all the new things that you'll be doing. But it's incredible that you've been able to do all that you've been able to do in the short amount of time that you've been on board. So thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Makes a
All
huge
right.
difference.
You're welcome, and I appreciate it. You don't make the captain too nervous because they're watching this and they're gonna say, "Uh-oh, she's gonna have more work for us to do." Because I tell them I'm going slow. This is slow.
And Mayor, I would just have to echo what Councilman Francois said. I mean, I expressed a lot of my comments last council meeting, but I say all that to say that I definitely appreciate the responsiveness of the department, and obviously your candidness about the realities of policing, and also being a woman of color, and bringing that empathy and professionalism to your role in the department.
You could try it
And
too.
I think, it really shows. And I think people have really had the opportunity to bring out the best of themselves. And I am, as I said last week, despite, the pain in the morning that comes with kind of when you see this stuff across the news, I am tremendously proud of the work that's being done in our department. And that in that respect makes me feel good. And that's a credit to you and your captain. So if they are listening, you guys can pat yourselves on the back, but just be aware that you're doing such a great job. I'm going to start expecting even more. So
Me too. Me too.
I just wanted to add that because I was in serious ask you IA questions mode. But I also wanted to, give the carrot and the support as well. Sorry, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Udine, could you please mute? Thank you.
Can I? Oh, I'm sorry.
Any other questions from council? So I have one. A measure of morale of a police department and a measure of the quality on the broad street throughout New Jersey of a police department is the quality of its applicants for openings. There's a police department with a bad quality, with bad reputation, is going to get poor applicants. What do you think of the quality of our applicants?
Oh, I would say young, ambitious officers are applying to our police department. And I will tell you this, I scrutinize who we hire severely because, the reality is you hire an officer now who has 2 to 4 years on the job. They are going to probably be in that department the next 20 to 25 years. So you have to be so careful. And, a lot of people want to work here, so we have the advantage in a way of being very selective, and we are. And I think the last dozen or so officers that we've hired are the best young officers that are out here that wanted to come to our department. I will say that they've shown it in their work product. The other officers have embraced them. They're teaching them everything they need to know. And I think they see it as a way, hey, if I train these young bucks to do this, I can go do something else around the department maybe. So, and we're looking for talent within the town as well. And we're also getting that. And we're thinking of ways to try and get other officers who, live in and near Franklin, who, already know the community, because that's an advantage. I mean, people who are from here, they know the streets. That's one advantage. They know the people. That's the second advantage. So they train fairly quickly. So and if they have prior police experience, that's very helpful. But we are doing that. I would say I'm very thankful for the applicants that we have hired, and we're looking forward to hiring additional people to fill the ranks. And I think our officers are also satisfied with the new hires.
Okay. Do you have any closing comments?
I just wanted to, there was a comment in the chat about, has the department done a review of officer social media as well as other measures to try and push out white supremacy that has been found in other agencies across the country? So, I mean, the creation of the Internal Affairs Unit does that. We have very, very, very thorough investigators in those units. And I would say that, we look for everything. We don't put blinders on and say, no, it can't happen here. We're just careful. And that is why we're so selective as to who we hire. And that is why we expect so much of our officers here. And they have not shown us that. And we do have measures in place to try and ascertain whether or not that is an issue. So I just wanted to address that because that was one of the elements of a training I did with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. So we're aware.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps it up. Thank you for taking the time. And I too will add my comments of appreciation. You really came here, stepped right into the fire of COVID and social unrest, and I never for a second regretted hiring you, and many times we're saying, thank God we had made that choice. So please keep up the good work, and my compliments to your force. They're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. Absolutely. If you need anything, let us know.
Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes. There are none. Approval of the warrants, the bills we pay in the amount of $2,358,183.46 on May 11th, 2020 are presented to Township Council for payment. Do I have a motion
I move that the warrants as read be paid.
and a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Anyone like to pull an item, discuss an item? Hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Embarrasson?
Yes.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine?
You're muted, Councilwoman.
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Item number 12, calendar year 2021 municipal budget resolution 21-131, authorized to read the calendar year 2021 budget by title only, is presented to Township Council for adoption. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Well, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Dodged another bullet, that passed. Now, we're on to a public hearing. All right, motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. So, we submitted our budget to, who is it, DCA? And due to COVID, they have not reviewed our budget yet. So we can't pass a budget until they approve it. So we did, however, indicate that we're going to have budget hearing. We thought it was appropriate that we still have that budget hearing. So we are having one, and there will be another budget hearing next meeting, when we hopefully will be able to pass the budget. So we are open to the public. Anyone may speak on the on the budget only, limited to 2 minutes. Name and address, no yielding of time, the usual rules. Mr. McQueen.
Yes, anybody from the public wishing to speak, we ask that you use the chat function, raise hand feature, or *3 on your telephone. Again, anybody from the public wishing to speak, use the chat function, raised hand feature, or *3 on your telephone. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we have one. Mr. Guy, you are unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record.
Benjamin Guy, 35 Patton Drive. All right, you can hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So there's two things I wanted to ask. One is, and I was a little late to the call. One of the things are we just talking about what the presentation was for Mrs. Sproul, or is this open public session? I just want to make
No,
sure.
this is limited to questions or statements about the budget.
About the budget. Okay. So with the current budget that is actually getting proposed and things going on now, we have two things that are going on. One is COVID relief money that we actually have, and then we also have the city budget, the current township budget that is actually getting issued out right now. When will we hear about the COVID relief and the other stuff that's coming out for federal? And when we hear about this stuff that actually is going to be approved from the current budget currently right now? And then my next question is that with the township not raising specific taxes or not doing that based on this, but we're having an influx for the school board budget still because of the assessments that went on. How's that going to affect the township residents as a whole based on their tax appropriation for this year? That was my main two questions.
Okay, so I don't know the exact specifics of how much the school budget went up. I assume it's 2% because they always do 2%. I think on a whole, your taxes will go up. I haven't done the math on that. I'm not 100% sure, but because they take up roughly 65% of the budget, they go up 2%. We would have to go down significantly in order to balance that out. And I do know that the county, which is roughly equal in tax to the township, they did go up slightly. So while the municipal portion of the budget, the municipal portion of your tax will go down due to assessments and the fact that we were flat, your overall tax will go up. Council has no control of that. As far as the American Rescue Plan, preliminary, so the deadline was today for the rules to come out. Preliminary rules, subject to change, came out yesterday. Actually, yesterday was the deadline, and came out yesterday in that, what was it, Mr. Bornlocker, 110-page document.
151.
I'm sorry, my timer. Mr. Guy, your
So it was
time.
it was 151 pages. It has not been posted in the Federal Register as of this afternoon. So until it's posted in the Federal Register, it's not open for public comment. And the New Jersey Division of Community Affairs has indicated that they will not issue state guidelines on how the money is treated as far as municipal budgets are concerned until such time as the Treasury Department's regulations are in place. So it is unknown at this time when the final regulations will be in place. However, this afternoon, I made application to the Treasury Department for the township's portion of the Relief Act monies. So that aspect of the work is done. Now we have to wait for finalizing of the regulations before we can put any of that money into play. And so there's a number of discussions that will continue to be had by the committees of council as to that money, and no final decisions have been made. In fact, we have an administration committee meeting on Thursday to have discussions about this very subject. So I don't know how that's particularly related to the budget that this budget hearing is for, but that's the answer to the question, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And when he said it's not open for public comment, that's public comment to the federal government. That has nothing to do.
That's correct. The Federal Register accepts public comment on items that in this particular case, the Treasury Department issues interim final orders, and those will be you can submit comments on what those regulations are, like any other thing that's done in the federal government.
Okay, I'm getting an indication again that Mr. White has a question, so.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have unmuted Mr. White.
How are you doing? I have a question for the Public Safety Director. Two questions, actually.
So hang on, Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. White, this is questions about the budget only, and state your name and address.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll defer then. I thought this was still questions for the Public Safety Director's report.
No, thank you. And I'm speaking up because you've indicated you can't hear me. I'm doing my best. Any other members of the public wish to speak on the budget only? I'm not seeing anyone.
Mr. Mayor, seeing no one from the public, I make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public portion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Public portion is closed on the budget. Resolution, let me see if I get this right. Yes, Resolution 21-132, calendar year municipal budget, set the public hearing date for May 25th, 2021, is presented to Township Council for adoption. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella, Councilman Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
So it passes. The next public hearing will be on May 25th. Item number 13, public hearings and adoption of ordinances on second reading. There are none. Ordinances and on introduction and first reading. There are two.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, just wanted to catch you before you go into the ordinances. Just in response to Mr. White or anybody else who was interested or had any questions about the report. That report will be on our website, Mr. Vornlocker? Or will it?
It already is, I believe. It's
Okay.
part of this agenda.
That's what I thought. No, okay. And if anybody has any questions, commentary concerning that, who should they address that?
I believe the director welcomed anyone to contact her, so that would be who they should contact about her report. Yes.
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. So in way of transparency and providing as much information to the public, if I know Mr. White seemed to have a question, anybody, by all means, read it over and follow up with the police director if you have any questions. Thank you, Mayor. I just thought that was important. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So ordinance 4340-21, excuse me. And an ordinance by Franklin Township in Somerset County, New Jersey, permitting the operation of any class, excuse me. I'm all choked up over this ordinance. An ordinance by Franklin Township in Somerset County, New Jersey, permitting the operation of any class of cannabis business within its geographical boundary and amending Chapter 112 of the Franklin Township Land Development Regulations by creating a new Chapter 346 entitled Establishment of Cannabis Transfer Tax and User Tax in Franklin Township. Foregoing ordinance is presented to the Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting and publication in accordance with law and public hearing and final adoption at the virtual meeting of the Franklin Township Council to be held on WebEx on Tuesday, May 25th at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion to set public hearing?
Moved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Mayor,
No, it needs to, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a note, the ordinance version that is in the council packet is missing a footnote, and you'll see the footnote is noted in each of the categories, and that footnote is the footnote that establishes the hours of operation. So I'll just read it for the record so it's part of the ordinance as introduced. Hours of operations for Class 5 retailer license shall be limited to 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the GB, NB, RDO, and HBZ zones. So I would ask that the motion to introduce the ordinance, Mayor, be amended to include that footnote in the ordinance.
No motion to amend to include that footnote.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
So we're going to take a vote on that, on amending the motion.
Mr. Mayor, as long as the mover and the second don't have an objection, I don't believe that you, if they because you haven't voted yet, so as long as they don't have an issue with moving and seconding it with the corrected language in it, I don't think you have to take a separate vote. You haven't introduced it yet.
The original mover and seconder.
Correct.
I have no objection.
And who was the other person who moved and seconded? Mr. Vassanello.
Correct.
Deputy Mayor, correct.
No objection.
Okay, so that is now the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
the public hearing should be June 22nd, not May 25th.
A pox upon me.
No, it's not you. That was my mistake.
Okay, well, I would not wish a pox upon you. So, okay, it will be June, say again?
June 22nd.
June 22nd. So, so this is basically establishing or indicating that cannabis will be for growth, manufacturing, wholesale distribution, retail, and delivery. I might be missing, as well as medical. I might be missing a segment there, but basically we're opening up all segments. And it was the advice of the Economic Development Group that we tax to the maximum in all the categories. So that's basically where we are now. Any other discussion? Excuse me for getting a drink here.
Mayor, could you just establish, when you said tax to the maximum, I mean, it's actually a very small tax. Could you just let the public know what that means in numbers?
It's to Council Vice President, it is Deputy Mayor, it is 2% on 2% on the sale of all, correct.
And 1% of wholesale.
Correct. 1% transfer on collected from receipts for wholesalers.
Okay.
Mr. Raynone, just a little clarification. I think that maybe that would help with the Deputy Mayor's question. That's 2% of a whole.
Correct.
That if the township taxed for less than 2%, the state of New Jersey would still collect the whole, which is, I believe, 10%.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
whether we tax 2 or 1 or a half, the total tax to the business is still the total tax.
Correct.
And we're just simply taking what we would be entitled to under the law.
Exactly.
And I just
which begs the question as to why any municipality wouldn't take the maximum if the state was going to take it anyway. But I'm not sure I know the answer to that question.
and that tax money, just so people are aware,
it's like any other source of revenue stream. It goes into our bank accounts and then is part of our revenue for the year, like a hotel tax. And we use it as we would any revenue in the following year's budget. It's part of our bank account, right?
Yes, yes, so Deputy Mayor, there also should not go without note the fact that Franklin is one of a handful of impact zones, included in a handful of impact zones in the state, which means a portion of that money that the state collects actually comes back to Franklin under the cannabis law.
Right. And just to be clear, because also it's come up, that money is to be spent any which way. I don't even know if legally we can, and it's just a policy decision, but are we even allowed to take and say that amount of revenue is specifically spent on any particular item?
No, the revenue under this ordinance is not dedicated by rider, so it can't be dedicated to a specific. It's subject to your appropriation every year. The impact zone money, I believe, has specific programs that it is designated to. It's fairly broad, but there are specific categories.
Okay, and just so people know, this has been obviously going on for a long time. The discussion and came to a vote last November, and we are now going to be in the next phase of where it becomes reality in our town. And I just want to mention, I know Assemblyman Danielson has been a leader in this whole situation and has briefed the council. I think he came on, even fielded questions from from the public, if I remember right. And I know he's done some other Zoom and Facebook type things. Ms. Dominic, also Economic Development Coordinator. Just want to point out there's a lot of people, including our Economic Development Committee, that four of us sit on, that we've been dealing with this for literally last couple of years, and a lot in the last year. And now it is, well, assuming we pass the ordinance, will become law, and that will govern what we have in town and the money we collect, the taxes, et cetera, relevant to the legalization of marijuana. So just wanted to kind of summarize that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. No, excellent points from the three of you, actually. Any other comments from council? Mr. Dominic, you've been there patiently. Do you have any comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think everyone adequately addressed it. There is one typo. In the footnote, it's the HBD zone, not the HBZ. So that's just a little typo. Besides that, everyone adequately addressed all the concerns and the comments.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, Madam Clerk, this is for the setting the public hearing.
Councilman Embarrasson?
Yes.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
So we are now on to the second of the first ordinance readings, 4341-21, capital ordinance appropriating $1,111,630 from the, Open Space Trust Fund to pay for various capital acquisitions and improvements for the Township of Franklin in the County of Somerset, State of New Jersey. The foregoing ordinance is presented to Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting and publication in accordance with the law and public hearing, and final adoption at a virtual meeting of the Township Council to be held via WebEx on Tuesday, May 25th. Is that right? Tuesday, May 25th at 7 p.m.
Yes, it's correct, Mayor.
Okay. Do we have a motion to introduce and set public hearing?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I mean, this is basically the next step in the open space trust fund budget, is to
Correct.
spend funds on the things we said we would spend them on. And we can do that with the trust before that's acknowledged by the state, because you can always spend from a trust.
You got it right, Mayor. I'm so proud of you right now.
11 years in government and I'm not so just,
It's one of the three ways you can spend money.
yeah. Well,
I think
my wife-
somebody who started Taxpayers United in Franklin would have known that.
You would have thought.
Ooh, that was a dig.
Any other comments? Either about the ordinance or about the mayor? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, do your thing.
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine. I didn't hear.
Councilwoman Udine, we couldn't hear you.
She's on mute.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
Okay, we're now on to item 15, the consent agenda, items A through I. Is that A through L? A through L,
A through L.
as listed in the consent agenda portion of the meeting, are presented to the Township Council. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Anyone like to pull an item or point out an item?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just mention item J, special event permit, the East Coast Greenway Alliance Global Impact Productions, New York City to Philadelphia charity bicycle ride. We're told there may be 500 bicycle riders coming through the town. They will be approximately equally divided between the Canal Towpath and Canal Road. So we're probably going to close Canal Road to normal motor vehicle traffic that day. At least inquiries have been made about doing that. I would anticipate that that will happen.
Very nice. Any other comments? Seeing and hearing none. Madam Clerk.
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
We have one resolution to be voted on separate, 21-45 award competitive contract janitorial services, July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir?
your manager is caught a little bit off guard by this, Madam Clerk. I spoke with the purchasing agent this afternoon. This should not be voted on at this meeting. It should be carried to the next meeting.
Okay,
All right, I guess, we've never had this. Do we need to do anything, Mr. Attorney, or just? You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted, Lou.
Lou, you're muted.
You do not need to table it. It just goes on to the next agenda.
Right.
Okay, great. So we're now on to item number 17, old business. Boards, committees, commissions, vacancies. Does anyone have a nomination?
Mr. Mayor, I have a routine, a nomination at the Sewerage Authority Board. We have had two vacancies, and the alternates have been voting in the absence of quorum. So I like to propose that we appoint the alternates to the board, creating 2 alternate vacancies.
Okay, are both of them expire at this, so one expires on the 26th, at the end of 2026, and one of them expires at the end of 2023. Do you have a specific person for each? Or are they numbered, or how do we?
Yeah, I think the first alternate is Jesus Alcazar. So he would go to the earlier vacancy. And then the second alternate is Arnie Schmidt. So he would go to the latter vacancy.
So I don't know what you mean by earlier and latter. The
Okay.
law-
Termination.
Yeah, so the Will resigned earlier in the year, and then Surendra Tiwari resigned just the last month, I believe. So.
Okay, so then Jesus will be on till 2026, and Mr. Schmidt will be on till 2023?
No, the other
Yes.
way.
Around.
Okay, the other
The
way
other way
around.
around.
The other way around, yeah.
Okay, as long as we're clear, as long as the clerk is clear. All right, are there any other nominations for these positions? Hearing none, we can do this by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Congratulations to the both of you. You are permanent, or you are full members of the Sewage Authority. Any other nominations?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hearing and seeing no nominations, we will move on. There is no executive session.